Hey, Julie.
Floor.
Floor's probably gonna be.
Hello.
Hi. We'll see how many participants we have today.
Okay, well, Flor said she's on, so or she's getting on, so.
She's getting on. Oh, there's Peo. Was better than last time. We had 0.
I know, there was nobody on here. Did y'all pay the neighbors already?
I believe they have, right?
No.
Oh, tomorrow. That's gonna happen tomorrow.
Okay.
You gotta finish the job.
Yeah, there was still some stuff.
Oh, okay.
When they were doing some work in the back, the tractor got stuck on the side of the shed. And there's like a big old divot or hole on the side of the shed that they need to fill up.
Oh, yeah, I think because the wife came and asked for the check, and
Yeah,
usually it's that guy, but she was just saying that they got screwed over not too long ago. And
Oh,
she
that's
was
probably
here.
why.
I was like, well, no, and I told her, I was like, well, I'm here every day unless there's really bad weather, so.
Mhm.
Wow. Told me he was gonna fix that, and that's why we have paid him.
We've been screwed over too. That's why with contractors,
Yeah.
you just want to make sure that they get it done because they won't come back and, they'll take their time in finishing the job off, so.
Yeah,
He said, in 2 hours, I'll finish that tomorrow. It's gonna take him like 30 minutes, maybe an hour. With that big old tractor he's got,
Mhm.
all he's gotta do is push that dirt over and fill it.
Are you gonna get on your computer too?
No, I'm just kidding.
You're just gonna follow with me? Okay. Okay, we just have us right now.
You know, wait 5 minutes.
Yeah, we'll wait. Oh, it's barely 1. There's Floor. Wait 5 minutes to see who else wants in.
Last week, Julie, when we were on the Zoom together, you didn't see or you didn't hear any issues with the audio, did you?
no, it was very clear.
Okay,
And it was the connection in the office that other day.
probably.
Okay.
And it could be the fact that we were right beside one another, but still, I didn't have my mic on. I had it muted.
Yeah. Hi, Flor. How's it going?
Did you cut your
Okay.
hair again?
It's been there changing, like, depends on weather. Now it's going back to gray.
That's like an auburn color. That's pretty color. The other color? Yeah.
Yeah, any color but that. Thank you.
Okay.
Any color but gray? Okay, here we go.
Any color but gray.
Oh,
Great.
nothing wrong with gray.
No, gray's the new thing. It's called platinum.
Platinum, eso, mira, ves.
Yeah.
I like that even better, platinum.
Something old for us.
Gray when white hair was in. All the young people are making their hair gray and white.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
All of us have gray hair already.
You know, the world
Have to.
goes vice versa. Young people trying to look older and older people trying to look younger.
Younger.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. We'll just wait a few more minutes and see if anybody else is jumping on and then we'll start.
Mhm.
Already texted. Already texted.
Text to who? Oh, I thought he's talking to us.
Fred apparently Fred, I had given Fred our credit card information to be charging us for our monthly service for the alarm. And apparently he hasn't been charging us.
Mm,
Yeah. So, I reminded him again.
yes. See here. Okay, so we'll get going. Today we're going over the critical path method. It is a sales method that is used that Robert will touch on a little bit, and then we'll go through how to incorporate the critical path method into the buyer orientation. And it really goes hand in hand, everything that you do. And it's very similar to when I did the listing presentation, the LP Mama, same things. It's just written different ways, really. But before I go there, I'm going to share my screen with you. And I want to show you, share screen. I want to show you how to be able to get onto Back Agent and find all the forms that I emailed today are all on Back Agent. So when you get on this, you go into your office here, and then you go into documents, and there's a lot of information. Our brokerage information is here. There's some lead generating resources here. The learning resources is where I am setting up the links to the classes that I have been able to record. There's about 2 other classes that I'll add in here. They take a while to convert and upload. Well, what this will do is we'll take you to YouTube. So I have a YouTube channel, and that's where I'm putting the classes after I convert them into the videos. So if you missed a class, like last week's was a really good one, but if you missed something, I don't know if you've been recording them yourselves, but if you haven't, they're gonna be here. Under learning resources. And then we have this tab here, this quick resources. This has all the documents that I sent today. And they've been here. And then there's even a buyer guide. If you wanted to use it and do another type of presentation, you can. There's other forms that are very useful here. So with that, let's go ahead and get started with critical path and questions to ask and how to go about handling a buyer's orientation. So when you're having the orientation, it means that you've achieved the appointment with the prospect, right? They called in, said, I'm interested, or somebody referred me to you. So the whole point to the LP Mama before on the listing side, you can use it on the buyer side as well, is to get the appointment to see them in person. Right now, I think the best thing to do is have them come to the office. I wouldn't necessarily go to their home. Sometimes you can meet them in a public place like a Denny's or a McDonald's, but there is an office for you guys to use. And if the buyer's truly serious, they'll make the time to come and they'll drive to meet you. Now, once you meet with them, your goal is to turn them in to your client, right? There are different methods that you can hold your buyer orientation. I'm going to go over the method that I use. I know some other people do not do this, but in my past years, this is basically with a first-time home buyer. And I do work with a lot of first-time home buyers. Second-time home buyers or third-time home buyers, they don't need this much guidance. You may do a quick little orientation and then they got it. They don't really need you to hold their hand. So this is really going over the type of buyer that I've worked with and why I've developed an orientation, because they're clueless and you can't just expect that the loan officer is going to tell them everything that they need, because they don't. And sometimes they're not even prepared. Oh, I needed earnest money. Yes, you need earnest money. You need option fee. You have to pay your inspector. So I'll go over that as well, and how I approach that so I know that they're prepared. So by this time you have the appointment, I follow up with the text that I have already pre-written. You want me to share it? I can text it to y'all. I have it in Spanish because I work with a lot of Spanish speaking buyers as well. But I send an appointment text. You can also send it in an email. And I explain to the buyer where we're meeting, the meeting location. I thank them, for giving me the opportunity to meet with them. And I also tell them for the pre-qualification process that they should bring their current ID, the most current pay stubs, W-2 forms for 2 years back. And if they're self-employed, they need to bring their entire 1040 and Schedule Cs for the last 3 years. They also need to bring 2 months of bank statements. This is the basic stuff that a loan officer will ask for. Now, I used to meet at the loan officer's office when my loan officer was here local. I referred them to one or the other. Sometimes I talk to them on the phone to find out, are they wanting some type of assistance program? Or if they're not necessarily, they say, no, I have like 20%, I have good down payment. Then I have more than one loan officer and I kind of distinguish which one. But really, you can send them a list, tell them about each one, and then they can decide who they want to meet with, right? But sometimes buyers, they don't want to just automatically talk to the loan officer. They want to meet you first. They want to know who they're going to be working with, because basically you're the first person they meet or they talk to, and then we usually send them to the loan officer. It happens different ways. So for me, sometimes it happens like this. And when they need to come into the office and they want an orientation, they want to know the process, this is what I do. If your buyer had already been pre-approved, or they went ahead and called the loan officer and they tell them they're pre-approved, you probably have a pre-approval letter, I think you should still meet with them so you can set the expectation about the market and the offer process, because it's not easy right now. And that way they're set. So once you set your appointment, if you set it up in the office in person, you can use one of the, the cubicles there. You have the TV to connect to as well. I don't recommend doing it over Zoom or over the phone. I've done that before, and I'm not able to really connect with the buyer. And I've did it like 2 times. I haven't even been able to get the back on the phone. I don't know why. It just feels, I guess, very robotic and not personal. So, and one of them was a referral that, now she's grown, but we've known her as a little girl. And we haven't been back in contact with her because we just did a Zoom meeting. And I just think that we didn't connect, So your main goal, of course, just like as on the listing presentation, is to build that rapport with them, to find out who they are, who you're working with, how many kids they got, what are their kids' names. And of course, I would make notes, have your sheet ready, make notes. I have my computer open and I have just a blank Word file open, and I'm typing my notes, and then later I'll copy and paste them into their, to my CRM, into their file. That's how I do it. But everybody can work it differently. I'm more of a paperless agent, so that's why I do it that way. But you can have handwritten notes on, and then make sure you keep them somewhere so you can go back to them. But you build a rapport, keep them talking, ask them. People love to talk about themselves. So, as much information as you can get, what do they do for fun, anything like that, because that helps you know them better. So then it doesn't become so awkward and you become friends, right? So it's basically you're networking with this person to find out who they are and become their friends. And hopefully, you guys will work together. That is your goal. Talk about their families or children. They love talking about them, find out if they play sports, anything like that, right? And then from there, you can lead into, now let's talk about what you're needing and wanting in a house. And I provided a form that is the buyer's needs and wants form. Robert created this form. It's great because it goes over a lot of details of where they're looking for, schools, bedroom, bath, what are the must-haves. And really, we want to find those hot buttons. What are they really looking for? Like that way that when you're out showing a house to them, you can say, well, this one has 3 out of the 5 of your wants, or this one almost has it all. Sometimes we're able to find everything they want. And you're like, well, this one really has it all. I think this is the one, you should offer on this one because it meets all your needs. And then they'll think about it like, yep, nothing's missing. That's the way we work some of our showings. Depends on how the buyer is. Some buyers, they don't want to be told that. They want to decide on their own, and just depends on the buyer, right? And also find out, why do they want a new home? Like that is really another hot button. What is pushing them? Do they have to be in because the lease is going to be over? Or are they living? I think the hottest button, I got to say, is when they're married and they're living with the in-laws or something like that. So one person in that couple is not happy about it. And that is a major hot button that you can push when one isn't deciding versus the other. Or they're just very comfortable where they're living, and that's why, and then the other person in the relationship is not. So you definitely want to tune in on all that, because then you can lean in more to one buyer than the other to create that urgency altogether to get them to offer on a property, right? And then you can ask them like, where do you live now? What is your current home like? And what is it, what is it that you don't like? Again, you're just really discovering them at this point. And if you could change anything about the house that you live in, what would it be? What is more important to you on your next home, right? You saw the perfect house today, would you be ready to move on an offer? And they usually say, yeah, we would be ready. And this is the form that I sent in there, the home buyer's wish list. You get their information, their spouse, their children's. You definitely want to try to remember like their children's names and ages, just because it's important to them, especially if you bring up, hey, the school district is fantastic in this area, and Ashley will be great. You know her age, so she's going to go to that middle school or that elementary. And then all these other questions. Now, this is just a form we created for an example. You can definitely rearrange it, create it yourself. But it's just for you to have more information, more questions to ask them. I feel that the more engaged I am with the buyer, in my experience, the more questions I ask them, the more they are committed to you, because they've already spent all that time and they feel that you're very interested in their wants and needs. And so I think it will set you up for a more loyal buyer, because remember, buyers can easily sway to another real estate agent, especially if they're looking for a house and they call and the other agent goes and shows them and builds better rapport with them than you, then you're going to lose out. So this is also a way to help you build that rapport with them. Okay. Am I talking too fast? Is everything, everybody slow down? Okay. Robert always tells me to slow down. Okay. So on to the next topic here. What I do, since I meet them in the office, I connect my laptop to the TV. Every cubicle in there has the TV. So I cast my laptop to there, and then I open up the MLS, because during the discovery, we want to discover everything that they're wanting and needing. And then we find out, let's go ahead and explore the areas that you're looking at, so we can set up the right expectation, right? So you're going to look at the desired area. Oh, I want to live in Jersey Village. Okay, let's look at Jersey Village area. Let's see what the inventory is like. Let's review the prices, and find out, also how aggressive of a buyer they need to be, right? So if you open up the MLS and you see that there's one home listed and so many pending, you can show them the pending and the solds and the actives. It's like there's one home listing. Open up the full agent full report for them to see the remarks. It could be there, oh, we have multiple offers, decision will be made by so-and-so. Explain to them the situation currently right now and what's happening. Okay. And at this point, if they may agree with you, they may say, yeah, I've been looking at homes and they go pending really fast. So that's true. They go so fast. Okay. So at this point, let them know how the market is doing, the situation that we're in, that there's multiple offers on properties, and that properties are being sold for above list price. So we need to find out if this buyer that you're meeting with that day, are they going to be able to do that? And then show them past sales in that neighborhood. You're right there and then set the expectation, show them. So that way they don't think that because we are salespeople, we don't want them to think that, oh, we just want them to pay more for these properties, because then that way we'll make more. Yeah, we will make more, but that's not why. It's just because it's what the market is. So, and when you talk to a buyer and they say, well, I'm not going to be offering more than list price. If anything, I'm going to offer less, because we want to negotiate. And, they get huffy and puffy right there. And then, at that point, you can decide whether or not you want to work with this buyer, because I give you an example, and I put example A, Thackeray. I've spent a lot of time, and Julie can also vouch for this, showing this man homes, offering, and we kept telling him, and he got it at the end, but he still would not offer more. He wouldn't waive contingencies. And I really spent a lot of time with this man only because I liked him. And he's a referral from a past client that refers me a lot of clients, and they work together. He works together with the past client. So I didn't want him to go back and say, man, you referred me to her, she was great, and then she dumped me, right? So I kept trying to help him and realize that, look, and I would show him reports and so forth, but in his mind, this market's going to crash at any time and I'm gonna get a better deal. And that's what he kept thinking, like, I'm not gonna overpay. I'm not gonna be underwater. I'm not, that's what he was saying. So you as a real estate agent, listen for those cues, that they say, and then you know what kind of buyer you're gonna be working with. Because if they're not gonna be willing to offer more, and if they don't have any extra money and they're not gonna wanna waive content, then it's gonna be a super tough challenge for you to get these people under contract, right? Especially if you already know that they're looking in places like Cy-Fair and Jersey Village and all these very desired areas. So at that point, either tell them the reality and set the right expectation. And like I said, you may not want to work with them. Eventually, Mr. Thackeray said, I'm just going to rent a house. And I kind of, just wash my hands of that. And I said, great, that's probably what you got to do. And you can wait around and see if the market goes down, but it may not. The prices probably will still keep the same. They may not be as competitive later, but we were already in a multiple offer situation before COVID. So I think that our market's strong either way. So here you go. Oh, it's just here more notes. Show homes based on what they want. Explain to them on the MLS what details you can see about the home if they have energy efficiency. And also I go over buying new homes versus, or newer homes versus older. I set the expectations at this point. Older homes, you're going to have, homes from the 70s and 80s that haven't been fully remodeled, probably have the, what is that pipe called? Not the PEX. PEX is the new stuff, but the galvanized plumbing. I was telling them they're going to have galvanized plumbing. The rafters and the roof are going to be spaced, further apart. And there's just, depending on the house, sometimes I go show the house and I can tell them, well, this is going to come up on the inspection. This is going to come up because I've already seen it. So I'm just setting the expectation so they don't feel when they get this report, it has all these defects. No, they're not defects. It's just that the home was built in 1970 and not in 2000 something, but also of course show them what the newer features will benefit them, like a newer home has newer windows. So go over all those benefits to them and see what you can, what they can change. Sometimes they change their mind. Sometimes like, I really want a new house. And then they start looking at the prices of the new house in the area, like, well, I may have to settle for something else, right?
Remember we were talking about the hot buttons? Erica mentioned that. And the reason I bring this up regarding the features, okay, you have certain buyers who want energy efficient homes. They're saying, oh, I want to leave a smaller footprint. Those are a lot of the younger buyers in most cases. Not everybody's in this situation, but just an idea that I want to throw out there for you guys. So the feature benefit is what I want you to point out to them. And if you don't know some of these things, you need to ask, go to a new home builder and let them do a demonstration for you of their model home. And if they don't know, then that's a big no-no. They should know these things. And what it means to you as a realtor is that you are more knowledgeable. You are the expert, okay? And that's what is going to stand out you as the agent. When your new home, when your new clients or the first-time buyers come to you and you give them this information, they are going to love you. They're going to say, oh my God, I got a wealth of information from them because they showed me not only the home, but they told me, well, what does it mean to have energy efficient windows? What does it mean to have a tankless hot water heater? Well, who cares? Well, that's why I'm telling you, you show them the feature. Now you got to tell them the benefit of having that feature. So the benefit of having the double pane windows is going to help you on your utility cost. Every year you're going to save, money because you have double pane windows. What does it matter that it has TechShield roofing? Well, TechShield roofing is 20% cooler in your attic space. And so your AC doesn't have to push so hard to keep the home cooled. What does that mean for you? Well, my utility bills are going to be less. So understand what those features are and the benefit to the client. And if you start pointing those things out to them, they will see that and they're like, oh my God, this person really knows what they're talking about. So that's what makes you a more qualified agent. And obviously it just makes you stand out amongst the rest.
You know your stuff.
So that's what, when we talk about demonstrating the home, those are the things that you want to point out when you're showing the house. If you don't know what those things are, please reach out to me and I can help you and give you some pointers. Or like I said, go and visit a new home builder and let them do the demonstration for you. And that way you can learn some things about that builder as well.
Hey Siri, set reminder to have Robert teach class next week on home construction and benefits.
Okay,
Done.
added to
All right.
reminders.
And then make sure if you are visiting a new home or if you call ahead of time, make sure that the sales counselor is going to be there and not the hostess, because the hostess doesn't know any of that. Okay.
Mhm.
Alrighty, so now let's get into more of qualifying them and asking them some more meaty questions regarding where they stand financially, right? Sometimes, like I just had a phone call that I called a lead from my CRM that was looking, and he called and I called him back. I qualified him over the phone, and I already found out that his credit is really bad. And on top of that, that he has an I-10 number. And so we started talking, and it didn't seem like it was going to work out. So I told him I'm going to refer you to credit repair, right? So I do ask these questions to qualify him over the phone to see if it's going to be worth me setting an appointment for them to come in person. But then again, you do it again in person, right? And you've asked them, if they're first-time home buyers, to bring these documents in with them. So you're going to be looking at pay stubs, or at least I do, pay stubs, and more importantly, their W-2s. And if they're self-employed, it's super important that they bring their 1040 and their Schedule Cs. Okay, because you want to work with a ready and able buyer, right? Now, if they're not able, that doesn't mean you disregard them. You put them in a pipeline to keep following up with them, but also refer them to a credit repair specialist. And that way you have a pipeline. Sometimes it could take 3 months, 6 months, and the ones with really bad credit probably take up to a year. But the thing is about these, that you have to babysit them. You do have to keep following up with them, because they signed up with the credit repair specialist, but then all of a sudden they fell off track and they haven't responded to the specialist about a letter that they were supposed to get. So you do have to follow up with them for sure. So here are some of the questions that you ask. And I think a lot of realtors probably feel uncomfortable asking them, but you have to learn how to ask them, because you need to know, as a real estate professional, are you working with someone that isn't going to waste your time, right? So have you checked your credit lately? And that's what I asked this gentleman over the phone. Said, you could bring it up. If you had already asked him, said, ask it again. And you said you had like a 700 something score. Yes. Also ask them, where did you check? What source? Because if they check with Credit Karma, that's not an accurate credit score. Okay. So if they say Credit Karma, that's not going to be their score. Okay. They tell you have 700, 800 scores, and then you check it and they have a 500 score. Okay. But if they say that they're directly checking with a credit bureau or a monitoring service through their credit card or their bank, those are accurate. Okay. So you have Equifax, TransUnion, or Experian. Those are the ones that you want to hear that they're checking from. And you ask them, he might have came, it might be a couple, like last 2 weeks ago. I had a buyer come in, and it was just him, but it's him and his wife, right? So also when you're working with husband and wife, you want to make sure that they're together when they go look at houses with you, okay? Because if not, you'll waste some time, and they'll be like, oh, my wife will love it. Then he comes back, the wife doesn't love it. Then you have to drive 2 times to that house. So always stress to them, I need you both to be together. Sometimes it could be hard if maybe a spouse works out of town or something like that. Maybe you can make a special arrangement, maybe FaceTime them or something like that. But for the most part, you want them to be together, because it's a decision they have to make together. So you ask, how many borrowers will there be? If there'll be him alone. Sometimes the spouse doesn't work, so it'd just be him, depending on their situation. And then you want to ask them, well, what type of work do you do? And how long have you been doing it? Again, if they say, well, I own a cleaning company and my spouse and we run it. We've been doing it for 4 years. Oh, great. Now, those are the most self-employment are the most challenging to get qualified. So then your follow-up question is, well, how much, if you brought your 1040s, if I can look at them, or if you can disclose to me, how much is your annual net income? If you look at that 1040 and their net income is 15,000 after all the, like they made 250,000, but then they deduct it and you only have 15K left, you already know you're going to have some problems qualifying them. I would still send it to the loan officer, because loan officers can find ways to back out some of the deductions and count it as income. And I don't know what those are. So I give it to the loan officer because he's a specialist. but I would still go ahead and scan it in. And before I go forward, if you're scanning in documents for the clients, send them immediately to the loan officer and delete them off your laptop, okay? Don't keep them because then you have sensitive information. I also don't make hard copies of anything that they bring me. And if I do, I put it in the shredded box right away. Like if I had to, you know, because if it wouldn't scan, then I'll make a copy and then I'll scan it, but then I'll trash it or I'll shred it. So don't keep that information because it's sensitive. And if you're going to keep it like hard copy, make sure you're keeping it in your home and you have to keep it under lock, okay? And you have to shred it, but I would recommend you don't. Okay, so now let's go over, there's a form that I included. At this point, we start talking about qualifying them and warming them up for that process. But you also want to know how much money they have. Out of all the documents I always tell them to bring, they never bring their bank statements. Why? I don't know. I don't know if they just can't get them or they don't want to tell me how much money they have. Okay, fine. But that is one of the documents that they won't bring. They'll bring their pay stubs and they'll bring their IDs and their IRS stuff for sure. So in this form, it does go over that how much money is needed, not just in total for closing, but the upfront money, right? What I have found out through my experience is that loan officers in the past, even my current loan officer, and I always tell them, are you telling them that they need earnest money option fee and they have to pay like there's other fees? Are you preparing them for the monthly amount? And sometimes they don't. Some loan officers will not. So I want to make sure, because I've had this experience when I tell them, well, I need to collect, we're under contract, we're executed, I need the earnest money. Oh, I don't have it. I'm going to pull it from my 401k. It's like, what? No, you need that money now. Like I have to turn it in 3 days. So you don't want to be in that situation. I've been in that situation and you just don't do it. You know, prepare your buyer thoroughly. You want to set the right expectation, and you also want to ask them about the comfortable monthly payment. Where do you want your monthly payment to be? And you should know right now by now what PITI means, right? Principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. I always use the Fidelity National app, and if you don't have it, I recommend you download it and use it and play with it and run numbers. You should be very familiar with it, and that way you look like a pro when you can send them, here it is, this is what your payment will be. Get the taxes from the MLS listing to see, so you can give them a better accuracy on the payment. And then you go over, you know, how much money do I need to buy a house? And you want to disclose to them that they're going to need earnest money, they're going to need option fee, they're going to have to pay for a home inspection, right? I also have a mock closing disclosure or mock good faith estimates, that used to be called that. You can view it with them and let them know that if they aren't pre-qualified, if they don't want to be pre-qualified and they go into, you go show them a house and they get under contract, and then you start your pre-approval process, which is a no-no, you shouldn't do that. But if they do that, then they have to pay earnest money, option fee. And if they've already done their inspection, because you may only have 7 days, then they're out the option fee and the earnest money, right? And I'm sorry, the option fee and the inspection fee. They'll get their earnest money back if you cancel within the option fee, but they could be out, you know, $700 to $1,000. You know, option fees nowadays are high. They're like $250 on some properties. So that's $250, and then your inspection fee is like $495. So I mean, you're going to be out that money just because you didn't want to do your pre-qualification first. And I've had that happen where buyers tell me, he owned, like this couple, they were referred to me. A lot of them are referred to me. So this couple said, oh, being approved is no problem. I've had a relationship with Bank of America for years, and I do all my business banking with him. I should have no problem qualifying. He didn't want to do a pre-approval. They already knew the house they wanted. They wanted me to offer. I did. And then come to find out they couldn't approve him because he was self-employed. He made over $1 million in sales. But by the time he did all the deductions, he only reported $50,000 to the IRS as net income. And with all his debt that he had, you know, he had to pay on trucks, and, you know, he had other houses, so he wasn't qualifying. So then he had to go, I pulled him out and took him to my lender, and my lender figured out how to make it work. But, you know, you only have 7 to 10 days, and you have the finance contingency as well, but you don't want to be in that situation where you find out you don't qualify and you've already paid inspection and option fee. He would still be out that money, right? And this is what you really, that is a hot button for me that you should push, that why to get pre-qualified first. But let's look at the forms really quick. And y'all, I have this in a Word if you wanted to change it anyway, but you want to tell them up front, and this is expecting the buyers doing an FHA, 3.5% purchase price. Earnest money, you tell them up front, of your 3.5% down payment, you're going to need 1 to 2% upfront. Usually 1% is what we can negotiate on the offer. That goes back to you. It gets credited to you at closing, okay, because it's part of your down payment. So that's your earnest money. Then you're going to need a termination option fee. And this is to pay for the unrestricted right to cancel the contract for whatever reason you want. But really that time period is strongly encouraged that you do a home inspection during this period, because you will be able to cancel if you find something major, or if the seller's not willing to do any repairs, because they are not obligated to. So termination option fee, 100 to 300. I've seen some termination fees lately on some of these offers really high, like $500, right? And then home inspection, I actually need to correct that because the home inspection prices have gone up, but they can range between that 400 to, some inspectors are like $600-700 for inspections.
Especially if they have a pool.
Yeah, they have a pool, so you have to, just like in the other class, and you have to prepare, the one we did about setting up your inspection. Do they have pool? Do they have septic? Do they have other issues? And then are they going to provide termite? Because those are all separate, right? So you could be spending up to $800 in just inspections or more. And then some lenders collect the appraisal fee up front. I put an estimate of 500, but I think they're like 575 or 650 now. They will collect that up front. So that won't be on their they'll be on their closing disclosure as a paid out of closing expense. And then you're going to have your prepaids and your closing costs that come from your title company and from your lender. And then what you have to prepay in taxes and insurances, you do have to prepay that for your house. And that's about 3% to 5% of the purchase price is what I explained to them. And then you go down here, the example I gave them on a $200,000 house, your down payment is $7,000. Let's say your option period was 100, your inspection was 475. You had to pay your appraisal. So closing costs and prepaids are about 6,500 on something that's 200,000. So total, what you needed here was 14,575, which is I believe it's this amount or this amount together, because these POCs, those are paid outside of closing, and that's when you want to tell them. Another fee that I haven't added to this form is the statement of account. If your addendum for property subject or mandatory association, if that form says that the buyer is to pay that statement of account, then that's another fee they'll have to pay. And those fees can range, that you do need to prepare your buyer for that, because those fees, sometimes they're $50, and in some communities they're like $500. So they can be high, and they have to pay that to the title company in order to order the statement of account. And you only have a certain amount of time to do it too. So that's something to watch very closely and have them prepared. Say you're going to get an email from the title company, and it's going to say that it's now time to order the HOA information, and there's a fee required. And per the contract, the buyer has to pay this. So here's the link, and they give them a link. Sometimes it's HomeWise documents. Sometimes it's another source. They click on there, they go, and it's a very quick information to fill out. They put their credit card info and it's paid. That cannot be paid at closing. That has to be paid up front. Okay. If that form says the seller, then we don't have to worry about the seller's going to take care of it. Okay. Now the mock loan estimate, I put that in there because I feel that, I know when I've gone through the loan process and buying process, any little changes that happens, I have to re-sign this form. So I just want them to get familiar with what this is. And this is the form that they'll have to sign 3 days prior to closing in order to be able to go and sign and close and fund on the day that we set, right? So 3 days prior. And you explain this is a loan estimate. This is where all the information is disclosed on your loan. This is provided by your loan officer. And let them know that when these documents come to them, you don't see them because they're only being sent to the buyer. So sometimes the buyer says, I got this disclosure, I didn't see it, because that's confidential between you and the loan officer. If you want me to review something, then they may have to share it with you or email it, and then you have to open it to go over. Most of first-time home buyers, it's not that they don't trust the loan officer, but some loan officers are very straightforward, and they're not really friends, they didn't build that rapport like we did. So they want someone that they trust, and now, since you gained their trust, they want you to review this form for them and with them. So you may have to do that. Okay, we'll talk. So it goes over what the loan amount is, what their rate is, what their P&I will be, right? And then of course, mortgage insurance and what the escrow is. And then of course, this will tell them how much money they need. And then these are all the charges involved, okay? If there's anything off, really the lender has already disclosed this form multiple times to them before closing. So if you've already gone over it with them at the beginning, then hopefully you won't have to go over it with them again, but you will have to tell them, you have to acknowledge it 3 days prior to closing, they're gonna send it to you again, okay? And if you have a good relationship with the loan officer, like I do have with mine, he usually tells me, it's clear to close, I sent the disclosure over, and so therefore they have it, they have to acknowledge it so we can close on the day. Hopefully it's on contract date that we're closing, or sooner. But this tells them everything, what you're really looking for at the end, to make sure that any credits they negotiated from the seller are there. Anything that they were supposed to get credit for, that you're making sure that the title company didn't miss the addendum or amendment, I'm sorry, for that, okay? Now let's go back to the PDF notes. Okay. PITI based off, okay. So now that we've talked, let's talk a little bit about the PITI, okay, and setting that right expectation. I've had buyers that come in and they tell me, we're looking, let's say we've already looked at the area, because I did my discovery with them. So I pulled up the homes, and they want to live in Jersey Village or in Cy-Fair in a certain neighborhood. And we already know that homes are 280,000 and up, right? But we saw the cheapest house is 280 and up. But they want, 4 bedrooms, game room, this and that. Okay, well, that home like that will cost you a little bit more. Maybe you want, they're going to end up at 350 or something like that. Okay, great. Well, when you're having this conversation with them about the payment, and they say, yeah, I want my payment to be like between $1,200 and $1,500. That's not realistic, okay? So now you have to say, okay, let's talk about that. What is your payment? Includes your principal, your interest, taxes, and insurance. You probably have to go slow for your buyers. Remember, they're first-time home buyers, and you do this all the time. So PITI for you is like, no problem, but they don't understand this lingo. So you have to break it down. Okay, so when you do your payment, if you're doing the minimum down payment and not over 20%, your payment has to include principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. Let's review what a house that like you want in that neighborhood costs. We said $350. Look at the taxes. The taxes are $9,000 a year. So take that information, run it through your Fidelity National app to come up with the payment and show them. At this point, you're going to have to estimate what their interest rate will be. I would go like 3.5 right now until so maybe they can get a 3.2 or 2.8 or something. But I would go by 3.5 in the app. And then you tell them, okay, your payment will not be between $1,200 and $1,500 on a $350,000 house with a minimum down payment. It's going to be maybe like $2,800, right? So this is sometimes what they go into shock, what they call payment shock. They're like, what? No, I thought I can't pay that much. Or, okay, well, then you ask them, where did you get that expectation of payment? And every time I ask them that, I almost bet they got it from the same place. They did some sort of mortgage calculator online. Sometimes they do it through HAR, because HAR has that where payment can be, and Zillow does too. So I tell them, okay, let's open that up and see, and I show them. You see here where it says details, you click on that tab and it tells you that is with 20% down payment, and that's only P&I. You have to include your taxes and your insurance for your house. So this is right here where you set that proper expectation. that, that their payment is not gonna be that much, and if they want to live in that neighborhood, then they have to know that they're gonna have to qualify and be okay with a payment that's, you know, whatever it's gonna be, $2,800. And sometimes they say, well, what if we look at cheaper houses? Let's look at cheaper houses and show them, okay, well, cheaper houses around that area and see what you can find. You know, I can find houses in a price point that will leave you at $1,500, but it'll be over here. Oh, I don't like it there. I can't, no, the school district sucks. Well, then you have to come to reality, you know, that what you want costs more, right? And for the most part, as long as you're setting the right expectation, they'll pay more because that's what they want. And it's happened to us. I wish I would have recorded a lot of my buyer orientations, because we go through that all the time. And it comes up again while you're doing your showings. It'll come up again because they'll want to know. Now they're curious to know what is the real payment. So they'll want you to run payments on every house you show, because I've done it, right? Well, how much is the payment on this? I'm like, well, it's only 10,000 more than the others. So it's gonna be like $100 more. Well, but how much? They want to see it through the app, you know, and that's fine. So I do it for them and I text it to them. You're able to text it. So they want to know. So that way, when they go home or before they leave, they have all the payment information, and they can now, husband and wife can discuss, well, I really like these 3 houses and the taxes are higher here. Now we can go through that, and they can tell me, because I want, hopefully every showing that we go, we're offering, right? Because if you're not offering, then you're not going to get anything, especially in this market. So that's the goal too for showing. So now that you've gone through the financial part and the expectations have been set correctly, then now you say, okay, now we're going to go ahead and based on what you've told me, and you understand now what the market's like and what your payment will be like at the houses that you're wanting to buy. Now it's time to go ahead and, you know, get your application going with the loan officer. So if you made the appointment and you met with the loan officer and the loan officer's there with you, great. If not, or if they've talked to them before and they have their pre-approval, because then we can talk about the pre-approval. Because if they have the pre-approval and it's only pre-approved for 200,000 and you know they're going to need 350, then I would ask them, did you tell the loan officer the payment you wanted? Yes. Okay. So the loan officer went by what you told them the payment you wanted. You probably qualify for more. So you know now that in order to get into that neighborhood, Black Horse Ranch or whatever over there in Cypress, you're going to need 350 minimum to buy a house. Yes. Okay. Let's talk. Then you can call the loan officer. But if they haven't been pre-approved, and be aware that they will, that the loan officers will tell them, how much do you want your monthly payment to be? And then they send the pre-approval based on that. I call the loan officer and tell them, I can't get them anything for that amount where they want to be. How much can they qualify for? What's their max housing ratio and DTI, all that. I want the max because I can't, you're basically limiting us. Okay. And this market is tough. So then the loan officer would respond and tell me, oh no, that's what they told us their payment want. And that happens to me all the time. They can go up to 400,000 if they want. Great. So now we know they can go up to 400,000. I'm not going to push them to buy a house that's 400,000. I'm going to try to find them something, you know, that meets their needs and wants, you know, within a budget, because I know everybody has a budget, right? But now they know what the right expectation for that budget is. So now you start. What I do, I use, like I said, I use 2 different type of loan officers. They both have online links to submit the application online. And like I said, I have everything casted up on the TV. I start going through their information and collecting it. I do the application for them with their permission. If they say I can do it, great. Give them your laptop and have them fill it out right there. And then I'm going to go scan your documents in right now. So we have them ready to upload into that portal, because the loan officer will also have a portal. Okay. There's different ways you can work it depending on how your buyer is savvy or not, right? But you go ahead and you get that application submitted and let them know that once they get the application and the documents, to give them 24 to 48 hours to process the loan part. Okay. And then once approved, your next step is to, I missed a step. I'm sorry. One moment. That's your part based off shared.
You're applying.
Okay, so now here, once you finish the application, you know, however you're helping them online or they're doing it, If you don't want to do it online, or they don't want to do it online, there are paper forms, like express applications. Ask your loan officer for those so you can have them printed and then just say, here, well, here it is. So they have to fill it out by hand and sign it, and then you'll have to scan it. At that time, you scan all the documents together and send it to the loan officer, confirm the loan officer has it, and shred the documents and delete them from your computer. Okay, you don't want their personal information on your computer. If somebody hacks in or steals your laptop, that information is going to be there. So once they're approved, now your next step is to go over the next steps. Okay, so now once everything is submitted and we have your pre-approval and we know you're good, now let's go over the next steps. What would be the next steps? So once you're pre-approved, when we have found the house, say we have already found your house, right? And the offer is accepted, then what do we do? So the very next step is to collect the earnest money and option fee, and we open title. And then we start the process of the inspection. And I know we've already gone over the inspection process on a previous training, and there's a process for that. There's some forms that I use as well, but I do use this form to go over it and tell them, okay, we're gonna open escrow. And there's blanks in here because we don't know what title company we're gonna use. But we help you set up your home inspection. I will even help you shop for hazard insurance, but you can shop for hazard insurance on your own. I would start with the company that you have your car or anything else insured with. Start with them because they can give you a multiple like a bundle, right? Like, and or you can call Annie and she'll give you a quote, right? So I have about 2 companies that I use that I send the information. Sometimes they have to call the buyer to get their information, or I may have it and I give it to them and so forth. And we get 2 or 3 quotes, and then, you know, say they can go with who's the cheapest or who offers the most for the less, or just whoever they want to go with, because they may want to go with their own company. And then we let them know that during the process, after the inspection and the hazard and during the home inspection, we're going to negotiate repairs for them, but we're looking for what we call, you know, defects to the home, not so much cosmetic, you know. So you set up that process and then the hazard insurance, and then you let them know that once we're done with inspections and we're ready to move and they're not going to terminate, then the loan officer will reach out to them for the appraisal. And then you let them know that they have to stay on top of their emails. That is crucial at this point, that they stay on top of their emails or any phone calls that come in from their loan officer, because they could be wanting additional documents. You know, they could be transcripts that they're having problems getting or whatever it is, but they've got to stay in tune to that. I also have a lot of, I have a whole series of emails that I sent that are called next steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I can share those with you if you guys like, and it tells them every step as well. The loan denial deadline, that means that is going to be your last time to be able to cancel that contract under, basically, because you didn't qualify. So if you haven't got the deadline by then, I mean, you haven't got your what they call an AUS or conditional approval from the underwriter by then, and you need to keep in contact with the loan officer to ask them for weekly updates. If they don't have it, then you can ask for an extension on that date, okay? But if the loan officer tells you, oh, but they're gonna be fine, they just need very minor things and they're solid, then I would still let the buyer know that deadline's coming up, but you don't really, I mean, they're solid. You know, they have good credit, everything's in line, no problem. Unless they lose their job, you know, on the day before closing or something like that, there's nothing more you can really do. And then you go over what a home warranty is and the choices that they have. And lastly, we do have a form where we collect information on the utilities, what days are trash days, if there's any codes, alarm codes. I recommend you do this, and we have a form for it, that we have it for on the listing side, that we collect it from the seller. You can use that same form to collect it from the seller's agent, okay? Because that seller agent may not have it. Collect it, because they will call you after closing and say, the alarm's going off, I don't have the code. It may not be active, but it goes off for whatever reason. I get those phone calls all the time. So if you can try to get those information ahead of time, it will be much better. Trash days, where the mailbox is at, you know. And so you let them know that you help them to set up, you give them the information to set up their utilities, okay? And then you talk to them about, you know, you come up to the day of closing, there's going to be an office that you're going to go to. It's the title company. So you explain to them that process, and that prior to closing, the loan officer will give them their final amount. If it's not the loan officer, it will be one of the title reps that will call them and tell them, okay, you're gonna close on, this day, so in this hour, bring your check for this much, right? By that point, they've already seen this closing disclosure multiple times. They've acknowledged it. They know that they've got some money to bring. And then you talk to them about funding and when to pick up the keys, right? So here's a little paragraph on it as well. Once they get the funding and the title company gives the okay, if usually I grab the key from the lockbox and I keep it in my possession, because I go to closing and then I take them to lunch. So usually within that time that we go out to eat, they're funded. So then I say, congratulations, you have the key. Or different ways. Sometimes we go back to the house so I can give them the key if the other agent didn't let me take it. And then you take the opportunity to take pictures in front of their house. So make sure you carry a little sold sign or key or something, because you basically make that special for them. Okay. So I include all these forms that I sent. I include them in the process, in the folder that I give to them. You could do a packet or you can do a folder. I do a folder. There's other forms that I include, which is the IABS. You should always include it and also kind of go over it and tell them about how representation works. You could do that towards the end as well. I always put it in the front, right? Because your first face-to-face meeting, you have it. And then I do give them for your protection to get a home inspection. I give them a list. This is an old list, but you can always send them to this website and you talk to them a little bit about what the inspection is like. And then I have my own inspection list, okay? So I put these in there. I don't necessarily go into detail, but I tell them that I provided that information for them there. So let's go back to the PDF notes. So as you close out your appointment, if you do this right, your appointment should take an hour, because I'm about an hour now, right? And I've gone through the whole thing. Now, keep in mind that as you're going through, if you have this like an outline, maybe you can do an outline for yourself and remember how to run your orientation with the buyer, that they're going to ask more questions as you go. So sometimes there's questions that you haven't even in your outline, you haven't got to. So you can let them know, oh, I'm going to get to that. I'm going to explain that to you, and then keep going. But sometimes it also seems that the buyer is not paying attention, and half of the information you're giving them now, they're not going to remember, and they're going to ask you again. And they're asking you more than one time, right? Yeah, they just do. They don't do this every day. So just be kind, and you're there to guide them. And every time they ask you, I'm sorry, I'm like, nope, you're fine. Ask me the questions. I know, no problem. I'm here to help you. This is what I'm here for. And then on closing, you close out the appointment by setting up your next appointment to meet tentatively to show homes. What are your days available to show homes? And you set up that process. Okay, so I'm off on Wednesday. I have a client that's off on Wednesdays. Some of them say, well, I only have off Sundays. That doesn't work for me because I'm off Sundays too, right? I tell them I work Monday through Saturday. So actually now Tuesday through Saturday. But you let them know what your days off are too, because you don't work all the time. So set those parameters for yourself. You deserve time off as well. So you let them know, well, these are the hours. Could you do it in the evenings? Yes, or I could do it early mornings, whatever works. So you set up a schedule that that you're going to be able to show them Wednesday and Saturday. That may be those 2 days. But also let them know that if you're having a hard time getting under contract and you're looking in a specific area because you're waiting till Wednesday to go look for the house and the house is already going to be pending by the next day, then you let them know that they may have to go and look at houses that day that they come out. Okay, so if they can be flexible, maybe you can be flexible. So if it comes out that day, if you can get off work, you get off work at 5, I can be there by 6. Can you be there? Yes. Okay, then I'll schedule it if anything comes up like that. Okay. And then you also set up the plan on how you're going to be viewing these houses with them. I send them my invitation to my HAR branded app. If you don't have that on your mobile app, you don't see an option for branded app, then you have to upgrade your subscription to Platinum, I think. Once you do, you get a bunch of more tools, and the branded app is one of them. And the branded app lets you set them up as a new customer. I recommend you put the phone number and the email in there because they'll get a text and an email. And it says that Erica, in this case is Erica Santana, is inviting you to connect with her on the HAR app. And that way you can see what they're viewing, because once they do, they can save houses, favorite houses, and they can even request, I want to see this house. They can set appointments. I show them how to use the app in person. You got to do, you do this. If you hit the heart, or if you say, I want to see it, I'm going to get a notification. So I know that's what you want to see on Wednesday, right? And we can keep an eye on those houses because they may go pending, right? So sometimes the buyers don't believe that they go so fast. And then once they're in it, they start seeing like, oh crap, I've really got to get off work earlier to go catch these houses, and then they're more flexible to work with you. So you tentatively say, okay, so you're off next Wednesday. Let's go ahead and set you up. Wednesday, what time works for you? You set it up, right? And during that time, you're gonna keep them busy with which homes that you're recommending. Now, sometimes they're looking in one particular area. I can't find anything because the market's tough. I start going outside those areas to see if they're interested in another area. And sometimes they will be more flexible to go somewhere else. But you just let them know that we're going to give it enough time, that we're not going to go see houses until we have that pre-approval from the loan officer. It may take like a day or two. And sometimes if they have more questions on their tax returns, they may take longer. But you want that process to be thorough and make sure, and you want that to be reviewed by the loan officer. That way you have a solid approval before you go riding around with this buyer. And at this point, the buyer should be more interested in getting the pre-approval than looking at homes, because they are now aware of the money that they have to provide up front. Therefore, they want to be sure too. They don't want to, lose time doing something and then they can't get that approval, right? Because they know they'll be out.
So the questions to ask once you start showing that section there actually is supposed to be up above here under the demonstration. So they got pushed down.
No, but this is questions to ask once you start showing houses, once they're out there in
Okay.
person. Yeah.
So here, yeah. Ask open-ended questions to get a feel of the home as you go through it. So you want to make sure that you ask questions about how they think, like, does the layout work for you? Can you see yourself living here? Based off of what you've seen so far, does this home meet your needs? Those are open-ended questions. There's several here that I put down.
The scale,
you can
the
use.
scale from 1 to 10 as well.
Yeah, one of the other ones we use is based off of what you've seen, what would you rate this house? A scale from 1 to 10. And obviously the higher ones, you want to make a note of that. And that way you put it, if you're using the branded app, you'll pull up the listing and it has a little section where you make notes. Go in there and write a little note, just put number, 6 out of 10 or whatever, rate it. So that way, and there's a lot of stuff, if you're seeing 6 or 7 houses in that one day, you're not going to remember all of those. So I don't like wasting paper. I tell my clients up front, if you want a list of these homes that you've seen, just save them on your branded app, or I'll email it to them on a separate email or text. So that way they can make their notes as well. So I don't send, and I don't take MLS listings with all of the information for the house. I mean, we try to be as friendly as possible to the environment. So some people like it, some people, they don't care. So just make sure you make a note of it when you're going to the houses. Actually put a number on there so you can remember, what did they rate this house? So that way you can reach back out to them and say, hey, remember this house, you said it was rated number 6 or 7. Now this other house you rated 8, but it didn't have all the check marks. But 6 had, this one you rated 6 or 7, but it had all the check marks of your needs and your wants. So, help me understand what it is about this house that you didn't care for. So that, those are things that you need to, based off the hot buttons. Remember we talked about the hot buttons? Ask them about that. Okay, you rated it 6, but it met all the check marks of the needs that you wanted in your home. And explain that to me so that way I can understand. And they may say, you know what, the layout was just completely wrong, but it did have all the other, or the area. We were really trying to stay closer to this school. So that's the reason why. If they didn't share that information with you, or you didn't ask, then that may be the reason why.
One more thing that I didn't bring up that I should, because of the way the market is, that was back up on the top. That once they start seeing that, and you've shown them 6 houses that day and they like 3 houses, you can recommend that they offer on all 3, but they have to understand that it so happens that 2 offers get accepted. And by accepted and execute, that's what I mean. Execute it and they've sent them back to you signed. Now you have 2 offers. And it's happened to me before, where he offered on 3 houses and 2 of them were accepted and signed. And I got them, and I had already explained to this buyer that if that happens, they have to pay the termination option fee to cancel that contract. And explain it to them thoroughly, maybe even email it to them, let them know that they are legally binded to those contracts if they are executed. So therefore, they have to agree that if that happens, they will have to pay the termination fee. That buyer actually did inspection on both houses because couldn't decide which house. So he did inspection on both houses. And then decided, oh, this other house has a bunch of problems. We're terminating that. And he terminated that. And he stayed with the other one. And that's the one he bought. So they can do that, but they are, binded to that they have a legal responsibility to the seller and, to the other brokerage as well. So that was one thing that I wanted to bring up as well, that it can happen and you can offer it. And sometimes they ask you, I've had buyers ask, can I offer on more? Yeah, you can, but you just keep in mind this happens. Also say that you've submitted on more than one property and one of them sends you the executed contract back and the other one says the seller is going to be accepting your offer. They may be signing tonight. Withdraw your offer. If you already know they want this other house, submit a withdrawal form. There's a form in transaction desk that you can have them sign, have the buyer sign it because they have to agree to withdraw it before you get the executed contract. Listing agent ain't gonna be happy with you, but you can do it, okay? And you wanna go ahead?
Yeah, if you can send that withdrawal offer, definitely will save your client money right away. So make sure that you have that ready. I would print it out anyway, or have it on your transaction desk ready to send to them. So that way you can send it. So one of the best quotes ever in sales, I think, I saw this somewhere at another new home community. I understand that you may have to sleep on it, but the clients that slept on it yesterday will be back today to purchase. So don't lose sleep knowing it could be yours today. Okay, I mean that's really how it is right now in today's market. You have to offer, you got to be fast, and you can't sleep on it. If this is an 8 out of 10. I mean, come on, there's not much, what is it that's going to make it a 10? That's the next question you should be asking when they tell you it's an 8 out of 10. So what's going to make it a 10? Well, it has to have a pool. Well, we didn't even look at houses with pools. So that wasn't even, you didn't tell me that we needed to look at houses with pools. Yeah. Those are things that it's weird. They won't tell you until the last minute sometimes. So that's part of the discovery when you're talking to them. Those questions you need to ask them. What is it you're looking for in a home? What's going to make this house a 10 in this aspect right here? So I think that quote is awesome because a lot of people were like, well, you know what? Maybe I don't need to sleep on it. Give me a couple of hours and I'll let you know. Or we step out of, if we're at a new home sales community, that builder's really pushing to get that sale, right? So we'll step out of the new home sales office and we'll go and discuss it, and then they'll come back. All right, what if I leave an earnest money check, $4,000 where you can hold it so I can think about it tonight? It shows your interest. So that's another opportunity right there for you to be able to get that, for them to commit right then and there. Okay, so the next one is always, once you're done and you've gotten to the part of, you've already looked, you found a house and stuff, you're basically going into close. You have to ask for the referral. Ask for the referral, people. You don't know how many times people are afraid to ask. They will not ask, hey, do you know anyone else in the market that can use my service? Please let me know, And then what I do is I'll give them a business card. I'll give them 2 or 3 business cards and say, here's my cards, let them know that I'm here to help you. If you enjoyed, your experience today, then there's no reason why they wouldn't refer you to the next client. All right. So definitely ask for the referral.
Yeah. And if they were referred to you by someone else, remind them, you were referred to me by so-and-so, right? She was happy with my services, so she referred you. But also, that, I'm sorry, my grandchildren came in and I got distracted. But also that your business thrives by word of mouth, by referrals. So, I always tell them I would be so appreciative if you did know of someone. Please refer them to me. You already know how my service works. And if you've been happy, I would give them the best, service, just like I gave you. And so you have to ask for the business, just like the listing part, you have to ask for that business as well.
Yeah, and these are just some little things you can say. Did you find the information informative? that I've given you? Did you find it helpful? Is there a friend or family member that could benefit from my service? Those are ways of asking for the referral. Definitely
Mhm.
ask. And then at the bottom, we provided some recommended reading. These are some books that we've used to kind of help us with our sales training, I guess you could say. I will be honest, there's a couple of books in here that I have not read yet, but they're on my list to read.
Mhm.
So they're really good information out there from different salespeople. Take a look at them, share your thoughts and ideas with us on the next roundtable or whenever we get a chance to discuss some of these. But they're really good, and I definitely think you should read up on them.
Okay. So now we come to the questions section of it. Anybody have, I know you had a question about, no, you don't need any other certifications to sell new homes. You're licensed, you can sell any real estate. Okay, so, and new home counselors don't need, they don't have to be certified or have licenses either. So, but any other questions? That anybody has?
Well, again, just to be clear on putting the two offers.
Uh-huh,
When I put two offers, you say like, will be counted to be an executed contract. I'm thinking it's like you send the offer, and because he has the pre-approval letter already, that's all he's gonna send. He's not gonna send earnest money and the option fee yet, right?
no,
And
currently I haven't seen anybody that has asked for, you don't have to send any money. Now, if you're working with some sort of like a relo, or if it's I think a HUD home, or those Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac's homes, if you're offering on those, they may require you to send a copy of their checks, but you never really submit the earnest money until you receive it
execute.
fully signed and executed with an execution date. Now, if you submit an offer and there's any change to that offer that the other listing agent wants you to make, your offer was basically declined. Okay, because if they say, well, we can't close on that day, I want the closing date to be this date because they're going to be out of town. That's basically a counter, or it's the same thing as being declined. So therefore, you can walk away from that offer. Okay, because it's not. But if you submit it and they make no changes to it, and they sign it exactly like you sent it and send it back with the execution date on page, I think it's like 10 or 9, then you've got a legally binding contract. Okay. And at that point, the buyer has to submit the earnest money and option fee within the 3 days.
When I have to send the termination fee
Together
When do
with
I-
the earnest money.
together with the earnest money?
Yes.
Whatever dates are agreed upon in the contract,
No, it's
you
3
have
days.
it there. But the option fee definitely needs to be submitted along with the earnest money
Mhm.
at the time of the execution within 3 days.
They both go to the title company now. We have revised contracts recently, and now both fees go to the title company, made to the title company. It can be one check
One
or it
check.
can be 2 checks, but both of them made to the title company. So they have to receive it within 3 days, okay?
Yeah.
So if you.
Actually, I'm sorry. Actually, my question was termination fee and option period is the same thing?
No, well, they're 2 different fees. Option, you said option period and termination?
Yes.
Okay, they are the same thing.
Okay,
we
so
call it
I'm
option
clear.
period.
I'm clear that earnest money and option period is sent to the title
Yeah.
company. I just hear termination fee, and I thought it was a different fee.
No, so
There's
it's
no-
called,
Okay.
it's called the termination option period. On the
Okay, okay.
contract, that's what it's called, termination option period. So that's what we say, option fee, we call it OP, because our status says OP, option period, but it's called the termination option period on the contract, I believe, if I'm not wrong. But that it's the unrestricted right to terminate the contract for whatever reason. So that's why you hear those 2 terms being used for that. But it's the
Okay.
same fee, yeah. And if you want to cancel, you got to make sure you cancel within the time prescribed by 5 p.m. So if it's 4:55 and they want to cancel, you better hurry up and send that cancellation form, the termination form, okay?
Okay, thank you.
So regarding the buyer orientation and any of the forms, does anybody have any questions on that?
a great document. Thanks, Erica and
Oh,
Robert.
yeah, you're welcome.
Welcome.
Yeah. Payo, you want to interject anything?
Wanna add?
Add?
No, the only thing that I was gonna, everything was very well, put together and I appreciate that. The only thing I was gonna, was so far is there's such thing as a termination fee. It's a, option fee. So there's no additional termination fee because you've already paid it for, with your option.
Right.
And one question is not in regards to this class. Compadre, last time you mentioned that there's a tool, small tool to measure the rooms. Where do I get that? And
You recorded.
I'll do a search online on Amazon and see if I can find it.
Is that what it is?
It's an electrical, it's a small, it wouldn't cost much at all. It was like 20 some dollars. So I'll do a search and find it for you and then I'll send you the link.
thank
The
you.
Yeah, the digital one costs anywhere from 25, 35 bucks. That's the handheld digital one. You can get it at Home Depot or Lowe's. They're not very, I think that's pretty reasonable. You don't have to be using the ruler and trying to do it old school.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. Okay, so it's recording.
Mhm.
Okay, well, I guess if nobody has any more questions, that's the end of today's class. I really appreciate everyone that logged in to listen to us, and I really hope that you're finding the information informative. And I think the next class, we will do it on the new home features and how to learn, what they are. And maybe we can get some information on certain builders that provide better features than others and so forth, But it is definitely something that you should do to visit the builders, get the features list and ask questions about what they are, because now there's so much more to a house. The smart houses, right? They offer so much different things, the different filtration systems and the thermostats and how to control them. And so there are more features nowadays. And now, of course, now that there's solar panels and all that involved, that's completely different and how that benefits the buyer. Right? Because especially if you're trying to get them to buy a home that has solar panels, you want to have more information on what that is and how that reduces their monthly utilities. So, but thank you so
Erika.
much.
Thank
Mhm.
you. Thank you,
Yeah.
Robert and compadre.
You're
Welcome.
welcome. Bye,
Bye, guys.
guys. All right.
Annie.
Bye, Annie. So,
I have a firm, it's called Candy.
sorry, I went ahead and resumed it.
It's
You
okay.
follow Facebook?
Group?
Yeah, I follow a Facebook group called It's Cooked. It's this lady named Candy Cook, and she's
Oh, yeah.
apparently very famous. And I see all these amazing questions that frankly are terrifying. Like right now, appraisals, exactly what happened with us with that Sage Mill property. It happened with other people. Appraisers just aren't picking up the job at all.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if it's confidential. I don't know if Julie needs to mute. I don't know, but I've seen similar complaints that we
Complaints.